Welcome everybody. This is your host, Kwame Sarfo-Mensah, back with a brand new episode of Identity Talk for Educators Live. So, our guest for tonight is a very special one for a couple reasons. One, she loves math just like I do. And then secondly, it's a black. We have to show that recognition and just find out more about what's going on. So I have here today to talk to us about the different ventures she's doing, how she's been able to cope during the COVID-19 pandemic with her students, and then some of the other things that she's doing within her community. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring in Shariya Gray to talk to us about life in Fresno. Hey, Shariya, what's going
Hey,
on?
what's going on? What's
Nothing much. Yeah, nothing much. How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's actually my summer vacation officially now,
As of what day?
as of the 4th. So I been pretty much sitting at the house doing the same thing I was already doing.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't really feel like summer vacation because all the days feel the same now.
Yeah, we have yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And that's pretty much what I live by.
East Coast, in Boston, we're still in school. School's still going on for another couple of weeks, and then the kids go on summer vacation.
When is your last day?
Last Yeah, I think so. But
hold on, went out a little bit. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
oh, I can, loud and clear. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yeah, I
All
went
right.
out for a little, but I'm back now.
No problem. So,
Oh, Lordy.
tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you into the education.
Okay, well, for starters, my name is Shariya Gray, but I go by Gray, Miss Gray in the professional field. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Mathematics from Norfolk State University, and I'm currently getting my Master's of Arts in Teaching from Alliant International University. I have about 8+ years of teaching, ranging from tutoring, math help, test prep. I did a lot of part-time teaching at while I was in college, and then finally full-time teaching. And I just want to say, by no means am I the smartest person in the room. Just because I like math and I happen to be good at it, I failed Algebra 1 3 times. Like, I was really struggling. But I did come across this teacher, whom, shout out to Mr. Bjorklund in Michigan, who actually took the concept and made it realistic. Like, I could see myself using it outside of school. And then I thought to myself, I wonder if he could teach it to me like that and I could teach it to someone else like that, then I can make it even more relatable, even more engaging, even more relevant. I just felt like that was the path I wanted to take. So shout out to Mr. Bjorklund for making me become this person that I am today. And that's pretty much, I started into education and then I just never turned around. It's just pretty much where I've been headed this whole time.
Oh, that's awesome. And what's even more awesome is the fact that you're an applied math major.
Yeah.
And I was a math major in college at Temple University.
Ooh.
And there weren't too many Black people in my math classes during the time I was there. In just about every class I was in, I would say 9% of the classes I was in, I was the only Black person in the room, and it was the most isolating feeling. So I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, did you have a similar fit? Well, you're in Norfolk State, so I figured it was probably the converse, right?
Well, actually, let me take it back a little bit. So I grew up in Michigan, and I went to suburban schools. My mom didn't want us going to Detroit public schools, so I went to suburban schools where I was the only Black kid in all my classes up until like 5th grade.
Okay.
So I definitely understand like that isolation feeling. Then in 5th grade, a new Black kid came, so it was just 2 of us. And then middle school came, and it was 10 of us. And then high school came, and it was a nice little group of 20. You know, we all just kind of stick with ourselves. And then I moved to Virginia my junior year of high school, and that was completely different. Like more than half the school was African American. Like low key, me being a Black girl, I'm low key culture shocked because I'm just like, these aren't the kind of Black people I'm used to,
Mm-hmm.
or like this many Black people. But it really opened my eyes, and I knew I wanted to go to a HBCU after I moved to Virginia. And at Norfolk State, when I started in 2010, there were 68 math majors in total at Norfolk State. And I would say about like a third of them were Black, maybe around a third, maybe a fourth of them were Black. And the rest of them were, you know, Asian, Hispanic, white, and all the other stuff. But yeah, it's a little bit different for me just because I'm going to a school where it's mostly us, but still in the major, still in math, it's still low numbers because reasons. But no, it's pretty isolating. I've had classes where I was the only teacher or the only student. It was just me and the professor. Like I've been there before. I've been in a class where it's just me and no one other person and the professor. So that
Wait,
isolation.
wait, hold up. You're the only student in that class, and it's just you and
Yes,
the professor.
just me and the professor. I had 2 classes
Wow.
like that my last year. It was just me and him for an hour and 30 minutes.
Interesting, interesting. But I want to stay on the math talk for a second because I know in math, at least throughout my experience as a teacher and my 14 years in the field, you don't see a whole lot of Black women teaching math. It's a rarity. So I want to get your perspective on this. Why is it that there's a lack of Black women representation in the math field? Why is it still a rarity in 2020, in your opinion?
Well, I think we need to backtrack a little bit and ask ourselves, why is there a lack of Black representation, period? I mean, yeah, there's a lack of Black women, but there's a lack of Black people, period, in the math field. And honestly, in my opinion, I feel like it stems from the lack of foundation that we as Black learners get. So our people learn better as we do actively participating or completing hands-on activities. And mathematics at its core is just a science that was fostered, but it was perfected by us. We were
Yeah.
the ones who brought it in and really said, like, this is what it's going to be, this is how we're going to use it, and all this other stuff. So it's really like deep within us if we really like open up our eyes and really see what's going on. It's within us. But when we all decided to merge our educational systems, the culture or what the cultural responsive teaching that we need fell on the wayside.
Okay.
Because our school systems, they're looking for children who are good at math and children who are good at science. Because everybody's looking to give a scholarship out for STEM, and that's what they're looking for. But if you don't have a teacher that is actually going to look at you and to see where you come from and see your background and teach you that way, then you're not going to get the foundation you need. Because math isn't hard. It's really just if you know how to do the basics, you'll be able to do the most advanced things. It's just a building block stacking on top of each other every time you go around.
No, that's interesting because I always felt like my skill was innate. I felt like I was born just knowing how to do math. Same with my brother, same with my father, who's an actuary, so he's always working with numbers. Even my mom, when she was in college, she was really strong in math and still is to this day. So I just come from a family of mathematicians.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that you mentioned was this idea of the merging of education systems. So in reference to Brown versus Board and some of the other legislation that's taken place over the past few years has really impacted our system and our ability as Black people to really thrive academically in the way that we should. But I wanted to ask you, you mentioned you have this motto where you say, looks like you, talks like you, could be you. And that really resonates with me because whenever I come into a classroom, they're shocked to see a Black man teaching math. It's still a shock to kids. They think it's actually cool. And they look at you weird. And then after that wears off the first few weeks, then it's like, okay, we're in a normal space now. Like, okay, that's my math teacher. But there's a shock factor during those first few weeks of the school year because they're expecting somebody else to come through the door. Even parents, it's funny, even parents, like back to school night, parents will come to, meet the teachers and then they'll meet me and they're thinking I'm a student in the school, not realizing, hi, miss, I'm Mr. Sarfo-Mensah. I'm actually going to be your daughter's math teacher for the year.
You have no idea. I feel you 100%.
Yeah, it's crazy. But let's talk about your YouTube channel. So with COVID-19 hitting, all educators had to find a way to respond in a prompt manner because they knew that online learning was going to be the new mode of instruction. And you just went into action and said, you know what, I'm going to just start a YouTube channel for my kids and just give lessons on different things just to keep them engaged. So what inspired you to start the channel? And also, how did you come up with the name? What's the origin of the Black-Matician moniker?
Okay, so I am a huge planner. I feel like that's why teaching is so good for me because like 40% of our job is planning a lesson. But I have been talking about making a YouTube channel for years, like maybe at least 6. Like the last 6 years, I kept saying, I want to make a YouTube channel teaching math. And I knew it was going to be about math and I knew it was going to be teaching, but I didn't have anything. I didn't have camera. I didn't even know how to do YouTube. I didn't even know how to edit or anything like that. I just kept telling myself that I didn't have time or I'm too busy or this or that. But I did slowly over time start buying equipment and stacking my arsenal just in case I finally had time to start just out of nowhere. That was pretty much near the end of my college, like where I graduated college. And then I moved to California and I immediately started my master's and I immediately started teaching full time. So then I definitely didn't have time at that point. And now that I'm in my career, I'm like, okay, I could start buying actual equipment, like an actual, like a Canon camera or like a tripod or lighting and all the other stuff. But then I just put it in the backside, even though I still had all the equipment. But I'm here teaching. I'm here doing my job. And I hear all the time, like the friends of my students will say, Miss Gray, can you teach me how to do this? Because my teacher doesn't make sense. And I'll be like, okay, that's cool. But at the end of the day, like that's just a little taxing on me just because I have to teach my kids and then I'm teaching your kids. And then their friends and treachery friends are coming to me asking for help. And I'm like, dang, like I got to do what I got to do. Like I'm only one person. So one of my students who's actually like my son, Darion, if he's watching this, he has a YouTube channel. And he was like, Miss Gray, like you really need to start a YouTube channel teaching math because that way nobody can miss out and you're not missing out on time. And I was like, that's a good idea. And then he's going to try to sneak in there. I'll edit the videos for a small fee. I feel like all I do is teach little hustlers all the time, but that's okay. That's what I'm cool with. So basically when the Rona took over, I realized that I have 2 things. One, I have a lot of time on my hands to do whatever I wanted to do. And 2, I knew that education was going to change from this point on. And videos and YouTube were going to be like the one thing that teachers go to be engaging, or let's say we go back to remote learning. They're going to end up going to YouTube. So that's when I was like, let me just go ahead and start this channel. I put out the trailer, and I think now I have 1,500 views on that trailer. I don't know where that came from. Everything just skyrocketed, and it's been really good. I've had lots of interviews off of it. A lot of my students love it. It's my intention was to create a channel where if my students needed help, they could get it. If their parent needed help, they could get it. And if a teacher wanted to use it, they could use it. So I knew I wanted to attack those three groups. And I don't know, I just kind of just put my best foot forward and just started. I think there's a lot of issues what people have about starting YouTube channels is they say they want to do it and they say, well, I don't know. And then you don't start. Like, the best way to do anything is to just start it. Just do it. So that's how the channel got born. Now the name. So I have this like weird thing. Like I love putting two words together for no reason. No reason whatsoever. So I put two words together that literally describe me for exactly what I am and exactly what I stand for. I'm Black and I'm a mathematician. So thus the Black-Matician. That's what came out of that. And you know what's crazy? I told my dad about it and he was like, don't do that because you're going to scare away the white people. And I was like, but that's not my audience. Shout out to all the white people that watch my videos. It's very much. However, I'm really, really, really trying to grasp those kids that are like neighborhood kids where their teacher don't look like them and they need somebody that looks like them to teach in a way where they can understand through my speaking, which is the talk like me part, and then recognize how motivating and inspiring it is to want to maybe change their outlook on something to become me or this person that I'm trying to become at the end of the day.
But I like the fact that you emphasize the Black in the name, because I feel like so often as Black teachers in general, we're very invisible in our respective spaces. And we tend to compromise our self, a piece of ourself, in order to appease our white colleagues or just non-Black colleagues in general.
Yeah.
So by you emphasizing the Black, you're affirming who you are and you're really putting a stamp on that. And that's something that I know throughout my career, I've always been hesitant to do, because you're trying to assimilate into a space where people aren't realize that that's just not right. Like, how's it that people around me are able to be who they want to be, and I have to compromise myself? I have to leave a piece of myself at the door before I enter the school.
I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that, because I was just talking to one of my students' parent about this, because she had messaged me on Instagram. Because if you've been following me on Instagram, I've been talking a whole bunch of stuff about what's been going on. Yes. And she messaged me and she asked me how I felt. And I said, I feel like I'm tired of having to check my Blackness at the door. Because if somebody says something to me that's out of pocket and I respond, I can't be the aggressive Black girl that this persona that is going to get showered over me. Or I can't talk to professional because then I'm going to be an Oreo. Or I can't be this, or I can't be that. At the end of the day, that's why I chose the Black-Matician, because I'm two things. I'm Black, and you're not going to take that away from me. Nobody can take that away from me. And I'm a mathematician, and I have the paper to prove that, which nobody can take from me. Nobody can take that away from me. So these two things, when I say like they're two things that I am my whole being, that's what it's going to be. Nobody can take that from me. So I've just decided that I'm going to promote my best self, which happens to be my Blackness and my ability to teach math.
No, and I think that's an interesting point, because when you look at what's been happening in the wake of the police brutality, which has been going on for a number of years, there's a whole history of it. Now, people want to talk about the immediate deaths of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, countless others. We can go back even further. We can go back to Emmett Till. We can even talk about Amadou Diallo. Like, Rodney King. There's a whole history of this behavior, this culture that permeates in so many police departments throughout our nation. And what's interesting about what's going on is it's opened up conversations about what we're having right now. We're talking about Black teachers. We're talking about how we orient ourselves in our respective schools and school districts. And I know there's some people who may be watching it and they're wondering, how do those two end up being in the same sentence? Well, it all comes back to one thing, and it's just this idea of acceptance.
Yeah.
This idea of being able to affirm who we are in this society and not have to worry about our tone of voice, not have to worry about crossing our T's and dotting our I's and all these other extra precautions that we have to take that other cultures don't have to.
Right.
I just think that it's interesting that these conversations are happening now, and I think that's more of a reason why we need to really put our stamp culturally in our school districts. So by you just saying, listen, I'm Black and I'm a mathematician, we should be able to say that without any hesitation and without any fear of consequence or repercussion.
Right.
And then if we see something that's totally wrong in our school, whether it's a Black kid being sent out of the room, he could be in the first or second grade. He's taking a timeout that's lasting for 3-4 periods consecutively, and no one's questioning that, or the fact that our curriculum is not culturally responsive and is not speaking to the identities of Black people.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, go ahead.
Another Black teacher at my school teaches, what does she teach? I think she teaches African American history, and she had the students analyzing the textbook for the class. So they were talking about what things do you see in the textbook that just don't resonate well with you. So they were having a discussion about how the textbook says that slavery was a journey, but journeys have positive connotations. Because they were talking about how slavery wasn't a journey; it was a forceful relocation, if anything, not a journey, not a positive one at that. And it opened up a lot of conversation, and I think that was last year, and now look at where we are, where these kids they're now opening their eye to see, like, oh, okay. Think about all the stuff that we didn't learn about in school, or think about all the things that people did learn about in school that you don't learn about now. And it's because I feel like our curriculum is very, like, westernized, like European westernized, and they're talking about making the schools culturally responsive in your teaching. But how can I be culturally responsive when the actual curriculum isn't culturally responsive? You only give me so much time to teach. How can I teach this topic on, I don't know, I'm teaching a geometry lesson about Pythagorean theorem, but then I have to also remember to be social emotional, and I have to remember to have cultural responsive teaching, and I have to differentiate, and I have to do all these things. But we're talking about something that these kids they don't know, they don't resonate in that. They don't see the importance of it, which really brings me back to the only thing I ever want to do is make math entertaining, engaging, and relevant. If it's not relevant to them, they're not gonna care at all about what I'm talking about.
Sorry. But you mentioned the Pythagorean theorem, which is a prime example of how we can be culturally responsive, because I'm sure you and I know Pythagoras did not discover the theorem.
No, he didn't.
That goes back to ancient Kemet. When he was traveling there and discovering all the mathematical innovations that were happening by the Cometians. It happened during those travels. But people don't know that.
No,
unless
they don't.
You actually teach that. Unless you take a history of math course in college.
Great class, by the way.
Very great class, very relevant class that
Yes.
needs to be taught in our middle and high schools.
Yes, it should.
It should be. But here's the thing. If I take time to teach that, that takes time away from the fact that, all right, I have to cover all these other standards to prepare for the state test.
Right.
Because that is what the priority is in pretty much every school district in our country. It's the state test. So that's where there's a struggle for many teachers. We want to teach a certain way, but because of how our system is structured and the fact that accountability is tied to how kids perform on these standardized assessments, by going the route of being fully culturally responsive, we're taking a huge risk.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's what deters so many people from going that route. But with everything going on, more of us, I'm hoping, will take that route.
Yeah, and honestly, like, if anybody who's watching that's a teacher and you're wondering, like, how can I incorporate these things into the lesson, like, you're going to have to put yourself in an uncomfortable position to get other people to be comfortable. Like, we, unfortunately, as teachers, we are not just teachers. We are guidance counselors, probation officers, aunties, uncles, mamas, daddies, grandmas, therapists.
I got no fingers.
We are so many more things past being a teacher that, like, at this point, if you're signed up for the position, you might as well be ready to fight the good fight, because this is where the fight is. This is where the fight is in education. If I can get a whole generation of kids to remember or to know about this particular thing, then that whole generation of kids knows it. And that whole generation of kids can go teach somebody else and then teach somebody else. And now we're building a generation.
That's right.
But you're going to have to put yourself in an uncomfortable position so that you can get other kids comfortable. Because they're not going to know it. Some of them, they're not going to hear this at home. They're not. The only place they're going to get it is from you.
No, you're absolutely right about that. And I'm just looking at the comments. First off, shout out to Class Disruption, aka Stephanie Evans, coming from the Bronx. She's coming with that fire, all the comments and everything. So we appreciate you. She says, I got my tenure, so I'm doing what I want. There you go.
Hey, I'm getting there.
Listen, we get that permanency, and I can speak to that. When you get that permanency within your district, you can speak a little bit more because you have some protection. Because you've already established yourself as a practitioner.
Right.
You have value now. You have merit to back you up. So if you do say anything, it's going to be harder for them to get rid of you because your evaluations are on point. You do your job, and you come with competence. And when you're someone that comes with that, it's harder for school leaders to get rid of you. It's harder for them to do that.
Yeah.
But I did want to ask this, and we talked about this off air. So you mentioned the fact that the educational paradigm will have to shift as a result of COVID-19 and all the other events that have transpired in recent weeks.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get your take on this. Knowing that at some point we're going to have to return to the classroom, what do you believe will be the best course of action for school districts to take in order to transition in the aftermath of all this?
Well, I've always been a firm believer of preventative rather than
reactive.
Fixing something. Yeah, so rather than reactive. Like, I'd rather prevent this so that if this happens again, I won't have to react because I'm already ready. And I've always been like that. Like, my mom tells me that I've been like that my whole life. But when it comes to this situation, okay, now here we are. We had COVID. Everyone got pushed out of school. Then everybody was running around like chickens with their head cut off because some school districts didn't have computers to the students, which is another thing that's a whole nother conversation for a whole another day.
Yes, it
then
is.
We have schools who do have computers for their students, but they weren't using them. And then we have all this stuff going on, and we're like, okay, but the only way to continue teaching is through a laptop or remotely or through Zoom. So honestly, when we go back, we're going to have to be prepared for something like this to happen again. Now, this is what I plan on doing next school year. And I always kid and joke until, like I tell my boyfriend all the time, I feel like we're going to end up like Xenon. Have you ever seen Xenon on Disney Channel? It was this.
I've seen it, but not on Disney Channel.
So they had this movie called Xenon, and in the movie, all the kids rush to this classroom, and then a hologram of a teacher pops up.
Wow.
And I feel like, I don't know, give us like 20, 30 years, we all going to be the new Tupacs of the classroom. Just holograms going to pop up. It's just going to be all of us just talking to teacher. But for the time being, I think that if more schools and more teachers decide to flip their classrooms. Now, if anyone doesn't know what a flipped classroom is, that's when you take the direct teaching, which will be like for math teachers, the taking the notes part for the kids to actually get the steps, put that at home through a video, right? Then they come to class, and I get to spend that entire block doing rotations, doing activities, doing hands-on learning, doing formal assessments, doing exit tickets. So my kids actually get the self-learning that I need them to get, because without that piece with math, if you can't put yourself in an uncomfortable position to get comfortable, then when you come in with me, you're just going to be crutching. You're just going to be looking for me to solve all your problems. And with math, that's not going to work. You're going to have to struggle and make mistakes in order to not make those mistakes again. So I really feel like we need to turn into a flip school or flip learning, put everything online, do it at home, or watch the videos at home, come into school and actually put collaborative learning to work, actually do stations, actually have academic discourse, actually have these kids utilize the vocabulary, utilize the curriculum in a more applicable way. And then if something like this happens again, you're not missing anything, because it was already on, the actual instruction was already on video at home. So honestly, that's what I'm going to do. So if anybody's looking to figure out what they're going to do, that's what I'm going to do, just because I'd rather be preventative than reactive. I would rather be prepared for something to hit the fan rather than have to scramble at the last minute. And also, with that being said, with the ability of the videos, if my students get to have a video, they can pause it, rewind it, they can slow it down on YouTube, they can speed it up, they can learn at their pace. No one's rushing you. You watch it on your own time, you watch it at your pace, and then you take notes and come into class. And if you don't understand something, it's a lot easier for me to attack that than it is for me to spend 15 minutes doing the notes. Oh, and now you got to go home and practice it without any guidance, because your parents don't know how to do it. Most parents don't know how to do it.
No, you're right. And let me just take it a step further. If you go to the affluent school districts, that's what they do on a regular basis. This is what they do. This is how they operate. Mm-hmm. Kids start the school year with Chromebooks, with laptops, and they take them home. You go to most urban school districts like mine and others and yours, right? We don't have that luxury.
Right.
So I totally agree with you about turning into a flipped classroom. But at the same time, we have to be able to have the tools and the equipment necessary for that to happen. Right. And that's going to include school districts allocating funds to urban schools in order to purchase Chromebooks and devices for each student.
Yep.
That's number one. And then secondly, with the flipped classroom model, you have to teach your children metacognitive strategies. In other words, you have to teach children how to learn, because it requires them to have some sort of intrinsic motivation.
Mm-hmm.
They have to take more responsibility. It's not teachers doing the heavy lifting, where I come in and I'm doing a direct instruction lesson where I have the problem on the board and I do 2-3 examples, and then we do an example together, and then I release you to do the work. Like, we're not doing that traditional method of instruction. We're putting the onus on the child, which in itself is a transition for many children, particularly in our urban districts because we do so much hand holding.
Yes.
Myself included, because a lot of these kids need it. They come from homes where they go through so much trauma.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the resources. They don't have the necessities. You know, when you talk about Maslow before you bloom, it's real. Like, we have to make sure that these kids are fed, that they have clothes on their back.
I can't tell you the amount of kids who have come in. So I actually run a classroom economy in my room. So everything they do, like when they come in off the rip the first day, I say, you have the choice to either do your work or you don't. The choice is entirely yours. Now, if you make the right choice, you'll get rewarded. If you make the wrong choice, you'll receive a consequence. Welcome to life. You have the choices. You can make whatever decision you want to make. So when I do that, my students really get more engaged. So I've had several students come in and say, Miss Gray, like, I didn't get a chance to brush my teeth today because I just came from the shelter. So I have toothbrush and toothpaste in my classroom for these kids because I know that your life is hard. I know it's hard. I know I'm watching you. Y'all tell me every day. I realize what's going on. I've had students that come in and say, I need some deodorant. Okay. I need a new shirt. Okay. For my female students, I need some shorts. I have some in the closet. Like, there's so many traumas that go on in our community that it's almost impossible for someone who doesn't come from the Black community to understand just how traumatic it is growing up Black. But I think what's good about what's been going on right now is the fact that people, non-Blacks, are opening their eyes to see, like, okay, it really is difficult, and I can see it. I can see what they mean when they say, I'm legitimately scared when I get pulled over.
Right.
Like, I'm frightened when I go somewhere and I'm the only Black person. Like, let's really think about that. I'm frightened because I'm the only Black person here. Like, you don't know what it's like to 24/7, 365, someone's judging you just because of how you look. And I think it's important that we foster that. Every teacher, regardless of race, needs to foster that information and really put themselves in their perspective. And I tell my colleagues all the time, you all used to be in high school. So why do we act like what they're going through is new? You were here before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and all of you don't have perfect lives. There's no way that something traumatic has happened to almost everybody, regardless of what life you come from, affluent or urban, whatever. Rural, something has happened to you that shapes you for who you are. And as an educator, it's almost disgusting for you to treat a student poorly because you can't put yourself in their shoes when that's part of our job.
Exactly. And when we talk about just culturally responsive teaching, and I've done many conferences on this topic. And the basic example I give is this. If you're a parent, you have a son or daughter, let's say it's Christmas time, if you celebrate that, when you're going to Toys R Us or some store to buy your kids presents, you take the time to think about what they will like based on their interest, based on their hobbies, based on just the inventory that you have on your child. So if you're able to do that for your child, why can't you take that same line of thinking and do it for your students? It's really what it is.
Yeah. And honestly, I think it's because they separate themselves. I feel like some teachers separate the fact that they're a student and not their child. And I don't separate it. When you come into my classroom, you are my child. And when you're in here, you are my responsibility. So if stuff goes left, you need to follow me up out this door because we're getting out of here. Like, you're my kid until you graduate from this place. And there is no separation. And that's just how I process all these kids. Like, I don't look at them and think anything outside of you are a child and you're my child now.
No, that's true. And I think that's your grandmother.
Yeah, that's my grandma. Hi, Grandma.
Hey, Miss Thompson. Yes. Your granddaughter is right. We need to do something about this. We do need to do something. But wow, I know we're running low on time, but before you go, I do want to put up your website so that people can see where to go because I know that you provide other services
Yes.
outside of the YouTube channel. And I want to give you an opportunity to just talk about that.
Okay. So if you go to my website, which is www.theblackmatician.weebly.com, first thing on the homepage you're going to see is my YouTube trailer and a link to my YouTube channel. And I pretty much use this website for both the Black-Matician and my students. So you're going to see some stuff that says like parents and admin and some student stuff. And then, like I said before, I do have a classroom economy. That's what Grayland is. So if anybody's interested in looking into how I issue money or do behaviorist approach in my classroom, that's pretty much where you would find that. But outside of this, and I have been doing tutoring for years, I also tutor, and I tutor both free and paid. Now, with the free tutoring, it's only twice a month, and it's in groups of 6. So if you decide that you need tutoring, you can go click that link where it says free, and you can join that class. And it is going to be up to 6 people in that class. But please don't think because there's not just you by yourself that you're not going to get this one-on-one instruction. That's exactly what you're going to get. I can easily manage 6 kids at one time, especially if all 6 of them are doing something different. So that's where the free is. And the paid would be like if you need me quicker or you want one-on-one, that would be the paid area. And it ranges from $25 to $50 depending on if you are currently K through 12. I think the max is $35 an hour. And if you are in college, which I've had a few of my friends hit me up and ask for help for like their ASVAB or stuff like that, that would be the higher education route. But teaching and tutoring, they pretty much go hand in hand. I really do enjoy tutoring just because we need that one-on-one, especially for our Black kids, because sometimes they get lost in the sauce of a class of 36. And they really do need somebody to sit with them and really explain to them hand in hand how to do it. So that's where the tutoring comes in. I saw that someone asked to contribute to my class economy. I will be setting up a fundraiser link so that people can donate. I'm actually in the process of turning the Black-Matician into a nonprofit. I just recently filed the paperwork. So I don't want you to donate until you can get a tax break because, we try to save these coins. So as soon as that is up and running and we are officially Black-Matician, the nonprofit, I will post that on my Facebook and my Instagram, all my social media handles, so you can donate. And nothing is too big and nothing is too small. If you feel the need to donate $1, that dollar will go to my class store for my students' clothing, deodorant, hand sanitizer, toilet paper, if you can believe it, and anything else that they need. None of that money is for me. All of it is for how I can help my students grow and incentives for them. So that's where if you would like to donate, just give me like a week or so waiting on this paperwork.
There you go. And we don't need to run over to Donors Choose to make that happen. I mean, we're going to talk about cooperative economics, Ujama. Let's make it happen. Let's support our Black businesses.
Yep.
Let's support each other because you have a lot of people like Shariya out here who are doing the work and are making it happen. And I've seen so many op-eds, so many articles about creating a new Black Wall Street, going back to the days of Tulsa and really bringing that spirit back. And
we need that. The Black community really needs that.
We've needed that for a long time.
It's crazy. So one of my best friends, he's actually my manager right now. Shout out to Breon Rooks if he's in here. He has been pro-Black businesses for years, like way before all this stuff has been happening. He's always been like, we need to buy Black. Our dollar matters. The Black dollar matters. And he's always been talking about it. And after this, all the protests and riots, it just like clicked to me that if I'm going to spend my money, would I rather save $1 by going to Walmart or spend $2 more to support another Black person?
Yeah.
I would rather spend 2 more to support my brothers and sisters because I know that money is going to go right back into our community,
Exactly.
which is what we need. We need that. So if anybody out there is trying to make some version of a Walmart that's Black owned, please let me know because I'm tired of going to Walmart.
Right. All right, you all heard that. And if you go through all the social media, all these internet platforms, you have people who are building Black business directories as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
So let's make sure that we get the Black-Matician on one of those directories. Matter of fact, all of them.
Thank you.
So they know what's going on. And this will be a perfect opportunity for you to just share your social media handles so that we can continue to support you and follow your journey.
So you can find me on Facebook if you search the Black-Matician, IG at the Black-Matician. I'm also on Pinterest at the Black-Matician. I do have a teacher pay teachers, but I'm not currently selling anything right now just because I don't feel right selling anything. So there's nothing up there, but it's also the Black-Matician. YouTube, the Black-Matician. If you are looking to hire me in any way, shape, or form, I do have a LinkedIn, which is on my website. And for Twitter, unfortunately, the characters would not let me put the. So my Twitter is just at Black-Matician. But any way that you can find me, I'm there. And always you can find everything centralized at theblackmatician.weebly.com.
And I'll just flash that up for people to see. So this is the Instagram handle at the Black-Matician, and then the website, the BlackMatician.weebly.com. So make sure you check out Shariya and support her with the class economy, support her with just the nonprofit, anything that she needs. But wow, this has just been a great conversation, and we might need to do a part 2.
I mean, I'm saying we could do a part 2.
We might need to do a part 2.
About.
We might need to. But thank you for coming on to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Just to share your story. This has been great. And we wish you continued success, and we're going to be there to support you with whatever you need.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. So have a good night, Shariya.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. But wow, another awesome episode of Identity Talk for Educators Live. Now, before we wrap things up, I do want to share some announcements. The first thing is my partner, Desmond Williams of Nylinka, and I are starting a COVID-19 summer bridge camp, which is going to start next Monday, June 15th, and it's going to run for 2 weeks. But we plan on having 3 more 2-week sessions throughout the summer. So if you know anybody who is interested in being a part of this camp, which is open to students in grades 8 through 11, please check out www.nylinka.org. You can get more information about the program and register for one of the 4 sessions. So this is going to be a program that is going to run through the entire summer. So if you missed the first session, there are 3 more that are going to happen. So make sure you check us out there. Now, if you want to be a guest on the show, you can email me at identitytalkforeducators@gmail.com. And we're not just looking for classroom teachers. We're looking for community leaders. We're looking for activists. We're looking for students who are doing transformative things, whether you're an entrepreneur or just someone who is doing something to uplift your community. We want to have you on the show to share your story and to let people know what you're doing. So if you fit that description, please send me an email at identitytalkforeducators@gmail.com. We'd love to have you on the show. And if you love the content that you heard today, subscribe to Identity Talk for Educators Live on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all other streaming podcast platforms. You could check us out there. And that's all I have for today. So on behalf of Shariya Gray, I am your host, Kwame Sarfo-Mensah, signing off. Wherever you are in the world, I wish you good morning, good afternoon, good night, and we're going to do this again very soon. Take care, everybody.